guest today. He goes by the name Dan Scott. He's located in Dallas, Texas. He's coming to you live on this beautiful Sunday morning. Welcome to the show.
I'm thrilled to be here.
Yes, I can tell. Tell the people a little bit about your background. So, you have what do you have, a PhD in something?
Yes, I have a PhD in neuroscience.
Okay.
Currently, I'm an instructor at the University of Texas Southwestern in the Department of Psychiatry.
Oh, what do you teach
Yep.
them?
I don't actually teach anybody. Instructor is a faculty level, the lowest faculty level, and I do research at the university. We study psychosis in animal models.
Take a step back. So, neuroscience, that's what you're doing now at the glorious Southwestern Texas. And beforehand, you were born, you said, in New York.
Yes, I did my graduate work at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine in the Bronx.
Where did you go to college?
I went to college in Oberlin College in Oberlin, Ohio.
Is that where like Steve Jobs went for a little bit, or no? No, he
I
went to
think
some other hippy
he
dippy
went to
school.
Reed, didn't he?
Yes, you're right. It's Reed, but it's like Oberlin and Reed are similar, right?
I mean, they're both small liberal arts colleges.
What was that experience like?
Oh, that was a lot of fun. Being a small campus, you know
How
a
many
lot,
people?
like 3,000. You know a lot of the people. You see them around often. Um, People go to the same events, the same local hangouts.
Who were your
And
people? Were you like a Rubik's Cube guy?
I was an ultimate frisbee player.
Oh shit! No shit. Okay.
Yes. The year before I got there, our team made it to the national championships,
Wow.
uh, championship tournament, not the finals. Then I arrived on campus, and we started a slow decline until my senior year, when we were at the bottom of our region.
Wow, you really got to where you wanted to go.
um, it was during this time, this was the early 2000s, when a lot of colleges in our region, we had like University of Michigan, Ohio State, um, like Purdue,
Yeah,
these real big schools with D1 programs. They didn't have frisbee teams in like the late 90s
I
or
see.
the early 2000s. They just started doing them. And then when they became, somewhat popular, the guys who were cut from varsity soccer and varsity, other sports, which are, incredible athletes who can
Right.
just run super fast, you put them on a frisbee team and you're going to blow away a bunch of liberal arts kids any day of the week.
I see. That adds up actually. What position did you play?
It's not really a position like sport. I guess you'd call me a long instead of a handler.
What's the difference?
So the handlers are the ones who make most of the downfield throws, move the disc around the field. The longs are the ones who catch the long passes.
And like run with it.
You can't run with the frisbee.
You can only throw it?
Right, yeah, you catch it and then you stop. And then you have to throw it.
Do you have like a couple of leg moves that you can do?
Pivot.
And what does that mean? One leg can't leave the ground?
Right. Yeah,
But
you
then
have
you
your foot, which has to stay put, and you can move your other foot around.
Okay, I guess I never really knew how ultimate frisbee works. And then how do you score?
You score by catching it in the end zone,
Like a football.
like a football. Yeah.
So it's similar to football, besides that in football you can also run with it.
Right. And you're not allowed to tackle people
What about like kicking the frisbee?
You cannot kick the frisbee.
I see.
I mean, you can block it with your foot. Like if you drop a pass, it's a turnover.
Right.
or if the pass is blocked or intercepted, it's a turnover.
If it's intercepted, they also have to just stand there and throw
Right.
it,
Yeah. I mean, there's really no point in intercepting it if you could just
block
knock
it.
it to the ground. It's the same thing, except if you intercept it, you can throw it faster.
Right.
If
Mm.
the game's going quick, catch it, throw it, get on your
Boom.
way.
What did you study in your free time from Ultimate Frisbee at Oberlin?
I was a neuroscience major and a math minor.
What's neuroscience?
Neuroscience is study of the brain.
Specifically the human brain or any brain?
Um, any brain.
Okay. Yeah, I know people like to study flies or whatever because that's like
Yeah.
simple-ish.
The goal of the life sciences is to study the human condition, but we can't be taking out human brains and doing experiments on them. So we have to use simpler systems. One step down from the human would be the ape, or monkeys. We are uh, Scientists ethically are trying to move away from monkey research, although in some cases it's still vitally important, especially in things like vaccine research and immunology, because of the close relationship between humans and animals. And if you want to test, you know, something like that in
Am
a
I
monkey.
vaccine specifically for the brain or does it matter? You're saying we
Well,
want to
no,
see how the brain is affected.
general for life sciences, but also the complexity of the monkey brain is such that it gives a much greater similarity to humans for testing, especially complex diseases of the brain, like schizophrenia. In fact, there's a region of the brain, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex.
Oh yeah, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. That's one of my favorite regions. Go ahead.
Yeah. Um,
It's funny.
so this region is found to be disrupted in humans with schizophrenia, yet we cannot study this region in the mouse because it doesn't exist in the same way. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, so for to study the effects of or the role of that region, you really do have to use monkeys for that. Unfortunate, we mourn the loss of those monkeys after we're done with the experiment.
Do, 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 do.
Um, and in fact, a lot of institutions don't allow monkeys because it's tough to house them. So actually, there's a big primate research facility on St. Kitts where
Really?
scientists from all over the U.S. will go out there for several months to do their work on monkeys. And
Is
it's
St. Kitts a U.S. Virgin Island?
yeah.
And it's like a little loose there. They're like, we just need the money. Like, let's get these monkeys going.
Like, we got a big island. Let's just throw a bunch of monkeys on there, and you can do what you want with them.
Fascinating.
I think it's just a consolidation of resources, so you don't have to have monkey labs all over the place because of the complexity of it. You may as well do it in a centralized location. I'm not sure if the St. Kitts government makes that a better place to be. But in any case, all scientific research has to be approved by ethical consideration on U.S. standards. So
Have you seen the Indiana Jones movie where they eat monkey brains as a soup?
I I did, yeah.
Like, people still do that, you think?
I think so. I mean,
Interesting, right? Seems like a wrong thing to do. What about dolphin brains? Have you done any study on that?
I have not. Um,
Seen anything?
I mean, it would be certainly they're fascinating animals.
They really are.
And so there's this series of brain atlases where the authors, what they did was they sliced through the brain very thin through anterior to posterior, and then they map out all the brain regions. So they've done this in a number of different species. We use the atlas for mice and rats all the time in the lab, but they also have like rabbits and sheep, of course, and
Yeah.
things like lions and stuff there. So there's probably a dolphin atlas that has been created, but
Yeah.
they're not a regularly used experimental animal.
No, and they shouldn't be, basically.
Yeah, I think if you want, like, what would you study a dolphin for? Either for social behavior, perhaps, because they're so socially adept, or for intelligence studies. And I
Yeah.
think monkeys are just as good for that.
And they're
But
more readily available and they're closer to us. Otherwise, you use
yeah,
mice.
or
Um,
yeah, if you wanted to like look at something like echolocation, you just use bats,
yeah. It's cool.
which are pretty much just mice.
They're like flying mice with echolocation.
Yeah,
Batman. You know how they say like we only understand like a really small percentage of how our brain works, and also we only use a small percentage of our brain.
yeah,
Can you give us
that's
some
not
more clarity on that? Yeah.
okay. So it's not that you only use 10% of your brain. It's not like there's like a little bulb of activity and 90% is just sitting there doing nothing. We use our entire brain. Not every cell is active at the same time, though. You
Okay.
need to have patterns of activity to get any function. So if you looked at 1,000 neurons in your brain during any activity you're doing, yeah, maybe only 100 at a time will be active, but they're all playing some part in um, you know in your experience.
Yeah.
They do such things like a neuron might not be actively firing, but it may be assisting another neuron in proper signaling. Or
Right.
the extra neuronal cells, the other cells in your brain, your glia cells. Um, we often hear of gliosis, brain tumors are formed from these cells, from the glia, because they're naturally replicating. Our neurons in the brain, they don't replicate. So, but your glial cells are like the housekeepers of the brain. They'll suck up some excess chemicals in the synapse, or create proteins that are necessary for proper
Mm.
functioning. And these are really understudied cells of their own. We know a lot more about how neurons work because they're the data producing cells. Um,
Can
but
you like, and maybe it's tough, but can you give like an overview of the structure of the brain, just like you were kind of, because you were talking about two specific things, like a synapse and a neuron, and then these other cells, like, and I know that I think most people are familiar. There's like different regions in the brain responsible for kind of different things, but you're talking about at a more cellular level what actually happens in each region, or I don't know if you
yeah,
can do that.
I apologize. I sometimes get too caught up in my own mind. I forget that not
How
everybody
dumb everybody is.
has my perspective. Um, so let's start zoomed out the most,
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
at the brain. I don't have a model here, but
I'll
yeah,
pretend.
looking at the brain you know from the big picture. In the back, you have that little bulb that's known as the cerebellum, and then you have the big domes in the front. That's your cerebrum. Within each of those, as well as in your brain stem, there's other individual nuclei, we call them brain regions, that have different functions. And each of those brain regions is made up of millions of neurons. These are the brain cells.
What's a neuron? Yeah, a brain cell. Okay, what is? Do
Brain
we know what it looks like physically?
They have all sorts of different shapes. Let's see if I can get a quick little drawing out here.
We're going live with it. Hey, did you guys know we're live on, not live, but we are on YouTube. And if you want to see this beautiful drawing, stop the podcast, go straight to YouTube, Pavlocast. Go ahead.
All right. So we have our cell body. Just
Looks like a kind of semicircle.
kind of like a circle. And then
Well,
you have
kind of like a boob a little bit, but it's cool.
your axon here, which is just a little process that comes off of that and ends in this terminus here.
Okay. Okay.
And in this terminus, this will hit another cell.
Uh-huh.
So this space between the cells, this is called the synapse. This is the
Oh.
way that cell 1 here can talk to cell 2. So how does a cell talk to another cell? The way this works is at that synapse, cell 1, the presynaptic cell, will release chemicals into the synapse. These are things like dopamine, which we've heard
Love dopamine.
things like drug abuse and depression. Things like the main excitatory neurotransmitter is glutamate. There are inhibitory neurotransmitters, GABA. Other neurotransmitters like serotonin, norepinephrine.
So a neurotransmitter is literally like whatever a chemical a neuron releases?
Yes, it's just spit out into that synapse.
Mm.
And then the cell 2, the postsynaptic cell, has a bunch of receptors that can recognize these neurotransmitters. And when a certain neurotransmitter binds to a certain receptor, it will induce a response. Now, for the excitatory neurotransmitter glutamate, you'll get an excitation of the cell. So, to not get too deep into the physics of the brain, but there's a membrane potential between the intracellular and the extracellular environment that causes an electrical potential between those two.
Okay.
A cell usually sits at about negative 70 millivolts.
Mm-hmm.
So when a cell is excited, ion channels in the cell membrane will open up, allowing positively and negatively charged ions to go by diffusion across the membrane to get that to depolarize the cell, get that membrane potential closer to zero. At some point, this is called the action potential threshold.
Mm-hmm.
When the cell gets depolarized to a certain degree, you get this big reaction in the cell where you have all these pumps start going, causing the cell to get this enormous electrical spike, enabling that cell to release its own neurotransmitters.
I see.
So you get this kind of step-by-step connection between cells. And yet it's not just it's not like cell 1 turns on cell 2, which turns on cell 3. Each cell has many different inputs. And so they have a tuning mechanism to filter these individual impulses to a more complex signal.
Fascinating. And this is something I'm sure we learned not that long ago. Like we're just discovering this stuff.
We're
50
learning
years?
more about this every day.
Do you feel like it's the last frontier? Like really understanding how the brain works? I mean, how much do you think we understand today if you had to put a number on it percentage-wise?
Oh, I'd say we know. It's tough to say, like, how do you quantify?
Super hard, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we may know that a certain molecule causes a certain effect,
But that's
but we
it.
don't know, at what structural point in that molecule, how that interacts with another functional point in another molecule, and how that chemical or physical chemical effect is causing something else to happen. We're never going to run out of things to study in the brain.
Hmm. So when did you first become fascinated with the brain? By the way, that discussion I thought was very interesting. We'll come back to some more brain questions, but I want to sprinkle in maybe a little little character development as well.
Sure, sure. Um, I think I first got interested in the brain was my senior year of high school. We dissected a sheep brain in the lab,
Oh wow.
and I just thought it was super cool. How these different parts of the brain can do different things to make us who we are.
Yeah, it's interesting. Are you more like a lab guy or are you more a computer guy?
I am a lab guy.
So you do some data analysis, but not really.
The type of analysis I do is not super complicated.
Yeah,
We'll have a single readout for a single experimental specimen, and you're just comparing two numbers.
yeah, gotcha. Interesting. And then when you were in grad school at Albert Einstein, Yeshiva University at the time, did you have the chance to kind of taste different specialties of neuroscience?
So we were given the chance to do 3 rotations in different labs. I came into grad school wanting to study addiction, as I had seen a lot in my undergrad years of people going down one of two different paths.
Oh yeah,
The Yeah, the totally fine can drink all they want, smoke all the weed they want, and get through going to class and having social lives just fine. And then you have your people who just fall apart. They just
yeah, it's interesting.
can't live a normal life due to those drugs. So I wondered uh, you know, what was separating those. What caused some people to get addicted.
But
So
don't you think the other people, like the functional alcoholics and stoners, are still addicted, or no?
uh, yes, I mean the addiction itself is a very complicated disease. You have physical dependence,
Right.
where you might get withdrawal from stopping taking a drug, or just tolerance to the drug. You have to take a lot more to get the same effect.
Hmm.
And yet, um, you can deal with those with with those withdrawal symptoms if you had to. And then you have other people who show none of those effects, yet will show incredible psychological dependence, even though they've suffered so many economic, legal, social consequences. They won't be able to stop doing those drugs. And so I guess that would be what you'd call a non-functional uh, um, addict, while somebody who may have to take care of those physical dependencies, yet can still function in society. You might call that a functional dependent person. I'm not here to cast moral judgment on
Of
either one.
course not. But like, so it's still. I mean, yeah. So did you ever do any of this like research into addiction? Why do some people have a hard time functioning with an addiction while others have a better time doing it? Some people
So
get less addicted too. Like I like drinking, I smoke some pot. I really don't want to try any other drugs because I am afraid that I don't know if it's true, but I'm like a person that would like get addicted to it. So I'm like,
it
I don't want to deal with any of
yeah,
that. I'm happy with what I have.
be a propensity to develop addiction. It's believed that all addictive substances work on the same pathway in the brain,
Yeah.
um, and in different ways cause the same types of neuroplasticity in the brain, where the strength of certain connections is altered. Um, what I studied as a graduate student was cue reactivity.
Mm.
So somebody may go through rehab, may feel great, may not want to do drugs again. Then they get home and they hang out with their drug friends and they relapse. And it's because they're exposed to all of the cues that they associate with that drug use.
Mm.
Um, the mere presentation of these cues is enough in many cases to induce some of the effects that you get from the drug itself. You look at something like the way people stop smoking. We know that nicotine is addictive, yet people have a really tough time with the nicotine patch or nicotine gum because they lose the cue that they have,
Right.
the of the physical act of smoking, of the
Oh, it's
taking a
interesting.
pack and tamping it down, lighting up, seeing that smoke, which is why the e-cigarette, when it was first developed as a smoking cessation therapy, was so effective. People could maintain a lot of what they had with smoking in a way where you're able to more carefully titrate your nicotine dose down to a level where you're no longer dependent on it.
Oh, I see. Yeah, now people are just puffing and huffing, and
Yeah,
they're just as
now people
addictive.
are using those e-cigarettes to start getting addicted, which is really not what they're supposed to be used for.
It's
Like
funny you
people
said
that
that.
went out and bought nicotine patches just to put them on,
People did not do that. Though. I think some people did get into the gum. So I used to smoke cigarettes for a while, and I've quit a couple of times. I've quit for a while now, and have no plans of ever smoking again. But one thing that for sure helped me is one of the exercises when I was quitting in my app was like just like you can pretend. So like take a pretend cigarette and do it, and like that when like you want to smoke instead of smoking, just do that, and that actually caused an immense amount of relief to the desire to smoke versus like even the actual nicotine. So that's interesting. That actually helped me quit a lot. Yeah, and if you're out there, stop puffing. Nicotine bad. Like I just don't get it because nicotine doesn't even do anything for you. You just get addicted, then you want it because you're addicted. It in itself delivers no pleasure or high, as far as I can tell. A buzz of like 30 seconds, stupid. Don't smoke.
Yeah.
All right, so curious what I don't know, like what do you think about AI? But I'm sure you probably heard this GPT-3 thing that was coming out, and it has like something like over 100 billion parameters, right? I don't know how familiar you are with machine learning, but you're probably familiar enough to know it kind of models how our brain works and the neuron kind of thing, right? So I'm curious if you can draw a parallel between GPT-3 and like its parameters, which as I understand it, I don't actually understand it, but I'm assuming it's still kind of tree-based stuff, deep learning stuff, and like our brain, which is also kind of similarly with the neuron trees. Like how many parameters does our brain have compared to, or is that not a fair comparison? And if it's outside, yeah,
I think it's incredibly difficult because the brain is really more of an analog device than a computer. Um, you can change one parameter uh, in so many different ways that I don't think it's something that can really effectively be modeled using uh, uh,
current
using
technology.
yeah, I mean, not right now, but I could be wrong. I just don't think that we know enough about how the individual components come together to form these greater ideas, these more philosophical concepts that we think of as human thought and human emotion. Uh, I'm not sure we know enough about that you can create that in a computer model, or even if we'd be able to detect it. How would we know if uh, how would what's the goal of the computer's consciousness if that's what we're creating?
I think. Well, I want to be able to. I'm classic, like AGI, average general intelligence. If you can create a computer that I can't tell that can do a job the way I do a job, the idea then is you can like super learn it to become really smarter than any human, and then it'll solve all our problems. So, but first, let's get to somebody that's able to do my job well or any job well. Like I can't tell that they're not human. Like that's what I want. I want them to like do jobs I don't want to do, and like then solve problems I can't solve. That's what I want. I don't want them to like Skynet me to death, but that's what it
Right.
takes.
I think that's kind of a simpler issue because your job consists of any number of individual tasks. So you can maximize the performance of those individual tasks. It would be a cumbersome process. It'd be more cumbersome than human intelligence. With human intelligence, you can throw any schmo out into pretty much any job, and they'll be able to, if it can be done by a human, be able to acquire those necessary skills. While with a computer, since there's so many competing interests, I think it's a much more difficult prospect.
So
I,
what's your bet? Your
I
bet
might
it's
be
not going to happen, like actual general AI, or not in our lifetime,
not in our lifetime.
but not impossible. I mean, nothing is really impossible.
Or I think the type of AI that we imagine,
The futuristic, cool kind.
yeah, the kind where it could it could provide humans type interaction. I don't think that's happening. Um, the kind of AI that is a mechanical sponge that goes around your surfaces and identifies stains and
Sure.
rubs them out. That could work.
Oh, yeah, I got states that need to be taken out. Paul's been busy.
What I think they should do is create like tiny microscopic uh, AI sponges in like a spray can, like the
Ooh,
scrubbing bubbles,
that's so good.
Yeah, except as little robots, so that after you spray it and they clean up the mess, they move out and like bring
Go die
themselves down,
somewhere.
so you don't have to wipe them up or anything.
Oh, I love that idea. Yeah. What about like, have you heard of Neuralink?
Sounds familiar?
Elon Musk is working on this thing to basically connect the brain to a computer somehow, or basically his whole thing is like increase the bandwidth. Is that possible? You think?
Hmm. I mean, you'd have to have output from your brain to this external system, which is performing calculations. I imagine something that can be done by a computer.
But like they do, don't they have things where you can kind of control a mechanical hand with a brain implant?
Sure.
So how does that
Uh,
work?
so in our brain, we have our motor cortex. This is part of the brain which connects to the spinal cord, will cause a synaptic connection onto a nerve cell in your spinal cord, which connects to a muscle and will cause that muscle to contract.
Yeah.
So you can say if you see activity in a cell in your motor cortex, that is causing this muscle over here in your leg to contract somewhat. So
Hmm.
if you're able to record from the whole population of cells in the part of the brain which represents the hand, we've
Hmm.
done a lot of research to see how the human body is mapped physically onto these parts of the brain. So you can see here's where the hand muscles are. So when you uh, go to do the motion of closing a hand, that it's causing your hand to close. But imagine you didn't have a hand there. you could still try to do that motion with your brain. And if you have a computer that can sense that linked up to a fake hand that can read that
And
sensation,
so what exactly? So what is this sensing it's doing? What is this
it's
sensing?
sensing the electrical activity,
Like
this
EMP stuff?
ionic
Okay.
exchange between the membrane. So that can be measured
Right.
from outside the head.
Got it. And is that a technology that can potentially just be able to decode thoughts and everything else, or no? Probably not.
If we understand well enough um, the specific thoughts that we have, so you may have heard of some research lately where they were able to implant a memory in an animal.
I haven't heard of it. That's interesting.
So yeah, so when a memory is formed, you get a certain population of cells will uh, act together, and that was called an engram. You have it's just the certain group of cells that's involved in this particular memory.
And
So
and this is a memory that's short term, long term, doesn't
it's
matter.
it's initially made as a working memory that's
Okay.
then converted to a short-term memory, which is then exported to a long-term memory. In either case, in any case, you're having the effects of this single engram projected throughout the brain, and these are made spontaneously with every memory. Um, so unless I knew the specific engrams of every memory I've had,
Right.
every emotion that I experience,
Right.
then uh, without that, a computer wouldn't be able to take any kind of, no matter how high resolution imaging you're taking of the brain, you won't be able to translate that into thoughts on a screen, or thoughts or images on a screen. With something like an image, it's easier because uh, with sensory input, the effects are much more defined in your brain. You look at a vertical line, you have certain cells which respond to changes in light, line orientation. You can kind of create that image or detect that image in a brain. Uh, but the emotional significance of it, the memories associated with it, that all is well beyond the tools that we have right now.
And do you know if like every human being's like whatever this pattern is? If I think of a birthday cake, just generally a birthday cake, boom, in my head, and you think about a birthday cake, that's going to be different. Whatever the readouts are, however they do it, that's not going to be the same, right?
Right, right.
And that's the challenge there. Okay.
Yeah. If we both were, put on some goggles that excluded everything else and just showed us the same exact picture. So
Yeah.
all we're seeing is the exact same thing. The location of the individual cells that are getting those that information is going to be different between us, but the general schematic, that the types of cells that are being activated,
Hmm.
the general area of those cells, that'll be pretty similar between us.
Cool. And something you mentioned I want to ask is like memory. So it was interesting. You said you create a memory first in your working memory, then it goes to your short-term memory, and then it gets exported into long-term memory. Like we understand that process pretty well today.
Not very well. We
Okay.
know that um, you have you seen the movie Memento?
Yeah.
So you remember in that movie, the guy had damage to his hippocampus,
Yeah.
unable unable to form new memories. His working memory was still intact. He was able to remember, if you were talking to him, he could remember the conversation as long as he wasn't distracted.
Right.
So his working memory is okay. But his short-term memory was completely shot. He couldn't, uh, you know, move those memories from the working memory into something that can be recalled later.
Right.
Yet long-term memory, the memories that were formed years and years ago, those are still intact.
Hmm.
because those are no longer in that area of the hippocampus that was destroyed. Those are generally, we think, uh, stored, I guess you could say, in the prefrontal cortex of the brain.
Hmm. And how does it make it there? We don't know.
We don't really know. There's a whole lot of research going on into that, but right now we got too many competing hypotheses to have any real good idea.
Um, Alzheimer's, dementia, that seems to affect short term. I don't know if it affects working memory or short term memory first, but definitely one of the two. And then, are you familiar with any like? Yeah, why is that? We don't really understand what's happening there. Right?
Yeah. So again, the hippocampus is a structure involved in short-term memory, especially. Also, things like social memory.
What's the social memory?
If you, I know that I've met you before
Right.
when I see you. Um,
Interesting.
so in Alzheimer's, the hippocampus is one of the first regions to be damaged. So that's one of the
That's
first.
what we do know, huh?
Yeah,
So fucked up.
yeah. We're pretty good at knowing what happens if you damage part of the brain
That's like
because
the best of our research because it's like the easiest thing we can study.
yep, and you can see it in people. People have a stroke. You
Right.
get a big lesion in the brain, and you see, oh, you can't move the left side of your the left side of your face anymore. Yes, we know what that part of the brain does.
And then sometimes you can kind of regrow it, right? I also don't understand like how much of the brain can really regenerate. I think you said we don't create new neurons or something like that. So all the
So
neurons already exist.
there is a little bit of a neurogenesis that happens throughout life. In a couple regions of the brain, you will get new neurons born. Um, it's unclear how super important that is. That seems to have some effect in things like depression. Um, People with low levels of adult neurogenesis seem to show depressive-like symptoms. But for the most part, brain cells are not uh, being born throughout your life, for the most part.
Hmm.
Yet they will change their shape and their connections throughout life.
Mm.
So if you lose a lot of cells in one part of your brain, the surviving cells around that may invade that area, increase their connections in that space. So somebody who loses 3 fingers, all of a sudden the part of the brain that's involved in moving those fingers is really not doing anything anymore. Those cells will wither away, and then the cells that move your other 2 fingers may improve their dexterity
Interesting.
because of that increased connection. That's why you see people who have no arms; they can write with their feet really well.
Hmm.
Um, some of the same, some of the same principles are occurring there.
How do you think about intelligence in the brain? Like, do you think intelligence is, are there limits put on your ability to achieve a high level of intelligence based on your biological, genetics kind of predisposition in the brain, or is the brain not even important to intelligence? Well, that couldn't really be it. Make a lot of sense. How do you think about intelligence in general? I think intelligence is always a fascinating concept for me. Curious, like what? How do you approach it?
Yeah, I think intelligence is it's more of a philosophical question.
Okay,
How do you measure intelligence? Somebody can look at a phone book and memorize all the names and numbers. Does that make them smart, or does it just give them a photographic memory?
the
Um,
latter, I think.
yeah, but somebody with a photographic memory, you might say, is smart because of all the knowledge that they have.
Hmm.
They're knowledgeable, yet some would argue that it's just the ability to use that knowledge towards a practical end that makes someone intelligent. Yet some would say that is what that end is and whether that, the general moral and ethical implications of the goals you're trying to achieve uh,
Mm-hmm.
make one more intelligent. Um, I think all of these are uh, can be influenced by genetics, by environment, by uh, epigenetic factors, things that affect how your genes are expressed. Um, these could be influenced by things like your butt guy or gut biome. Sorry,
But Guile,
butt
that's a new
biome.
one, baby. Fecal transplant. Fecal transplant. Go ahead.
If the stupidest person in the world got a fecal transplant from the smartest person in the world, they would probably get smarter.
I want to see that happen. Well, what about like measuring intellectual ability using like an IQ test?
I think all IQ tests are flawed. I really, I'm, I'm really hesitant to try to quantify intelligence. I mean, I'd say you can quantify uh,
What about when
proxy
you?
intelligence.
Sorry, say again.
Maybe a proxy for
Hmm.
intelligence you could quantify, like uh, a visual puzzle,
Right.
or certain types of riddles. They can, you can quantify your performance in that, but I'm still hesitant to say that makes somebody inherently smarter than somebody else.
Interesting. What about when you meet someone in person? Do you get a sense of their smart level just by talking and interacting with them?
Um, I guess it depends what we're interacting about.
Right. If you're just taking shots at the bar, it might be tough.
I mean, if they're buying the like the Coors Light, uh, is probably a worse sign than if they go for the Lone Star.
What about Miller High Life? I find that could be an interesting
Well, that's the
conversation.
champagne of beers.
So
Uh,
these guys know what they're talking about. Did you ever take like the SAT or something?
I did take the SATs.
What was your highest score?
I got a. So this was back when there was only two sections, so that was 1600. Got a 1510.
Ooh,
Very
close,
proud
buddy.
of that.
That's 1520.
Oh,
This
oh no.
but that was a combined score from two different tests.
Okay.
Where like what was my
What,
highest like one score test? Probably like 14 something.
so what were your two high numbers?
790 math, 730 verbal.
I did 780 math, 730 verbal.
Close. The math, I mean, you should have done better in the math. I should have
Damn
gotten
it.
a perfect score as well.
I got two wrong. I guess you got one.
And yours, I mean, you're a little older, so that means your tests. I think they always say the older tests were harder. I don't know if that's true, but look at us.
You know,
So yeah, I think the 1500 Club has like a intelligence thing, but maybe it's elitist. Maybe I shouldn't be thinking about it that way.
yeah, I think especially right now we need to realize that standardized tests are quite problematic. Um, I was reading a Reddit thread the other day.
Mm-hmm.
This gentleman was asking if he was an asshole for he's a
Am I the
tutor.
asshole thread? Those are great.
Yes, so he's a tutor, and he was saying that he doesn't take anybody. He's a tutor for like AP physics or whatever. He doesn't take anybody who hasn't gotten above a 700 on one of the math SAT2s or like the physics SAT2 or something. And he was asking if he was an asshole for setting that threshold. And the verdict was mixed, but I would say yes because that is a problematic way to
I agree.
the people who get 700s do that because they have the resources to get the test prep books, to go to the tutor sessions, to go to the prep courses.
Yeah, I mean, the way I did it is I rented books in the library, but I was steeped in like a very you must do well on these tests school culture, where even though I didn't have the resources or was willing to spend any money on it, like I still understood the importance of it, and I was still able to get access to resources, which I think matters for sure. Those were the heydays, baby. Taking those tests, getting those scores. No one gives a shit anymore.
I was always a great test taker.
Me
I feel,
too.
yeah.
That's like one of my core skill sets. That's why I'm thinking maybe taking some more of these like certification exams in IT, just because I mean I know I can do it fairly easily with some prep, and then I'll be like certified up the ass.
Yeah, you know, it's not a
Good to
bad
get
idea.
certifications. All right. We are now. So you're in high school. You dissected a sheep brain. Did you go to private school or public school?
Public school.
What was the name? Shout out.
Horace Greeley High School.
Horace Greeley. Nice, dude. That sounds
Yeah.
dope. Were you
Former
religious at all when
editor.
you were young?
Huh?
Were you
I was a class of '99, so I'm 38.
were you religious at all? You said you were. Oh, yeah.
Um, I mean, I got a religious education. I
Not in
had
this high school. You mean like as an additional bar
yeah,
mitzvah thing?
I went to Hebrew school, had a
Yeah.
bar mitzvah, continued going to Hebrew school for a couple of years, got confirmed, whatever that means. Um,
Confirmed the
but
Jew?
but I've never been a religious person.
Gotcha. Do you think, what do you think about God? That's probably a bad question to ask. What do you think
Yeah,
about God?
I don't
I'll edit
really.
it out, but just tell me.
Yeah,
Don't
I
care.
don't see it happening.
Like that. Um, what do you think about us as a neuroscientist? What do you think about living in a simulation? Do you think that's a plausible theory? Like, I don't know if you've ever done any meditation, mindfulness, um, or any like psychedelics where you're able to kind of experience consciousness in a very pure way, which makes me feel like, well, what is real? Sometimes
So what concerns me, I've thought a lot about they talk about uploading our minds into a computer.
sounds lovely.
Yeah, but will that bring with it our sense of self? Um, or will it just be someone else with our memories? Will I be experiencing um, any of this, or would some computer program who knows my mannerisms just exist in such a
Right.
in some online sim
I mean,
world?
that's the great question. Like, what makes consciousness? We don't truly know. But what do you want? You want to bring it over? Obviously.
If I could upload my consciousness to a computer, or an ageless robot like Data,
Oh,
I'd do that in a second. How great would that be?
that'd be. I mean, I'm kind of looking forward to it. I think it's something that's possible towards the end of our lifetime if we're lucky. It's unlikely, but it's not impossible.
How would you know if it worked?
That's
Like,
the thing. You wouldn't. So the only thing is the idea that you have somehow captured the little guy inside your head and now he's inside another head. It's a flawed idea because in my mind there is no little guy, and so this little guy just gets created by the mechanics of consciousness and all your memories and everything else. And so if we are able to reproduce that feeling, that's it. That you have this again, what I think is a fake feeling of a thing that exists, no matter how real it feels. So it's confusing to begin with. But if you can replicate that feeling in the computer brain, then I mean, I think what happened to the biological body, let's say that brain is dead, did it really transfer over? Since it's impossible for it to transfer over, since it's not real, I would say yes, it's transferred over. Do you get that? Do you get what I'm going at?
There's some old paradox about a ship. I forget what it was called. Uh, anyway, they're saying, imagine you have a ship and you take off a piece and replace it with another piece, and you do this to the whole ship. At what point does it stop being the ship that it used to be and become a completely new ship? Like
51%. That's what
so
California law says.
so let's say we make cybernetic arms and legs.
Yeah.
So I can cut off my arms and legs, get these robot parts on, still me, just with fake arms and legs.
No.
Then they can replace my organs because those are getting old and failing with machine parts. So it's just my brain in my head on this robot chassis with these parts in it. Still going all right. Now my face starts to go, my eyesight goes, replace my eyes, replace my skull with
Yeah.
just my brain in this robot body.
Yeah.
Am I still me or am I just a robot?
You for sure. With an
Now,
inside a robot body, because the brain thing is still the same.
now imagine you take your memories
Yeah.
of a certain year,
Okay.
my 2020 memories, and I put them on a USB that I could plug into me and remember everything from all my memories in 2020. And I take it out because 2020 sucks.
Yeah.
Am I still me?
Mm.
I'm now removing part of what is part of my experience. And there's more than just the things that happened that I'm remembering that have affected me in 2020. Every my whole life in this part has done things to alter my being, my personality, my experiential existence. How much of that is part of me at its core, and how much of that is just stuff associated with me? At what point do you get down to just the seed of being able to say I, of just knowing that you exist, the I think therefore I am seed.
Yeah. I Have you ever done mindfulness or meditation? Like,
Nah,
not
I
really. Like,
smoke a lot
can
of
you
weed.
understand when I say like, oh, you can reach a level of consciousness, like where you're just observing, your attention is just observing everything that's coming in, and like you understand that there is no I, there is no self, like ego death. Have you ever experienced ego death? Like,
No, nothing like that.
no.
I tend to, um, in a more of a psychedelic sense, tend to focus inward on the I,
Hmm.
and
And you
more
see it,
just
you feel it.
I have a sense of myself as a biological organism with
Hmm.
a perspective,
Yeah.
and I'm kind of hyper focused on that perspective,
Hmm.
looking out rather than looking in,
Hmm.
or looking out from the inside rather than uh,
Feeling that you're
taking a
connected
God's
to a
eye
bigger
view
thing.
of everything else.
Right. Okay, that's interesting. But you didn't answer the question. Do you think it's possible we're living in a simulation?
I can't rule it out, but I'm gonna say no.
All right, fair enough. You love like crazy rock. Do you like rock music or do you just like live music in general?
I'll go to all sorts of live music. I guess you'd say my general uh, genre of choice is more in the like punkish, grunge style, neo grunge.
Have you always been into that?
Um, I really have gotten into more expanded my listening since I've been seeing live music more in the past, I guess about past 2 years. So no, it's been more of a recent development.
What do you like about seeing live shows?
I love the energy there, especially at small shows where you really feel like you're part of something. You get to jump around and slam into people. Uh, it's just a good time, you know.
So you do like the energy, the dancing, and the jumping, and the interaction with human beings,
Yeah, I do.
and the music itself doesn't matter. Like,
Well,
do
the
you
music
like
itself
techno?
matters a whole lot. Bad music, I'm not going to want to jump around to. You know, I went to a hardcore punk show about
What's that like?
it's intense. A whole lot of mohawks, a lot of spikes in their jean jackets,
No shit.
and the mosh pit is a whole lot more violent. Um, People more intentionally targeting each other, more trying to hurt each other. But if somebody goes down, they'll still help them up. But you're more, moshing outwards. You're trying to hit people. I prefer
It's
the more
weird.
moshing vertically, where you're just kind of expanding your personal space into other people's personal space. You're really just dancing, you know.
Interesting. Do you miss that during this pandemic?
Oh, absolutely, I miss it a ton.
That's like the most thing. Yeah. When can that come back?
That's the last thing that's going to come back. I implore your listeners to check out the National Independent Venues Association (NIVA). Uh, they are the only organization that works to maintain these venues, so that when this does end, we can have a live music scene again.
Well, we always will. Just it sucks because these people are now out of work, out of money, and there's no way really to get that cash flow going at all.
Yeah, yeah. But like they're saying 90% of these venues are going to close without federal assistance. So if that happens, all of a sudden I used to be able to go out to, a dozen clubs every night if I wanted to, or any one of a dozen.
Right.
Uh, Coming out of this, there might only be, a few left. The local bands that I like so much are, won't be able to see them as often. The touring bands are going to be tougher to get tickets to. Going to be.
I
It's
mean, I
going to be
think the reality though, that it sucks, but it's a temporary thing. Because like when things open up, there's going to be pent up demand. People are going to want to go. So these venues will. It's not like these venues are all going to change and become Whole Foods. Like maybe one will, but like most will stay venues, and therefore they'll just have to be come back around, right?
That's a good point.
That's how I mean, it sucks in the moment though, and I think you might lose a good club, which sucks because you're gonna lose the ownership, the culture, like the fan base, maybe just even if it just stays there and someone new takes over, and
Right.
that sucks. I am if federal relief is an option, I think we should give it to them. It's not even. I'm sure it's not even that much money compared to the federal relief like BlackRock is getting. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
read this article where they're like buying their own ETFs. And I'm like, what, really? It's kind of ridiculous. They're printing money to then buy their own ETFs to like maintain the price. What the WETF, mate? But I love the government. People should register to vote. Are you registered to vote?
I am registered to vote.
Have you ever
Can't wait.
voted? Have you ever? Oh, you voted before in an election?
I vote in every election.
Why do you think you have this sense of duty to vote?
It's the only voice that I have. I'm
And
not.
it feels like he's not even there.
Yeah, but it counts. I can get out there and go on a protest march, but I feel like, although visually stunning, my presence there doesn't mean anything.
Their presence there would be visually stunning. Um, let's see what we got. I was going to ask you. Okay, so you've had. I say let's again talk about it. You've had type 2 diabetes.
Type 1.
Type 1, sorry. The one that comes like, the one that's not like late onset, the one that's like early onset.
Right. Juvenile diabetes.
How old were you when you figured it out?
I was 6 years old.
No shit.
Yeah.
And then from then on, you've had to like wear, they had to put a pump in or just constantly
No,
monitored?
so I was diagnosed in, I guess it was 1988. Technology back then was such that you'd have to use a combination of two different types of insulin derived from pigs.
Mm.
Um, one was a generally short-acting insulin, another one was a much longer-lasting insulin. Um, Both of them kind of had weird pharmacokinetic profiles, which made scheduling of injections very important, scheduling of meals,
Wow.
timed snacks. So for much of my childhood, I would eat at very specific times of day, specific amounts, and even then, it was tough to control my blood sugar. By the time I got to college, I guess maybe my sophomore year of college, the therapy had changed to using human cDNA derived insulins,
Okay.
um, which again, I was using two different types. One was a very slow acting one. You'd had to take a shot every 24 hours to just give a basal level throughout the day. And then a very short acting one, which you take right before you eat. So that gave me a whole lot more flexibility
Mm.
in my lifestyle. I could eat when I wanted. It was easier to adjust the amount I need to take to based on what I've been eating.
Hmm.
Then a few years later, the insulin pump came out, and this delivers that very short acting one at a low, steady rate throughout the day, and you could program spikes in it. And so I've been wearing a pump ever since then, and that was in 2003.
Which one?
The pump.
What's the
So
name?
so the first pump I had was the I
What's the,
forget
well, so you've got them changed up. So what's your latest and greatest?
the latest one is the
Is it
take
Dexcom?
a look here. It's the Minimed. It's the 670G. So this
The
is
naming of
exciting.
these is always mwah.
This one is exciting. So it comes with a continuous glucose monitor.
So, oh, okay. It's a closed loop system?
It's a closed loop system. Yes.
Wow.
So this is just for the basal levels, the slow release throughout the day. It'll
So hold
detect
on.
my
People
blood.
probably don't understand what we mean. So basically, diabetes, you can't produce insulin. And so you need to like put insulin to your body to whenever you eat something with that needs insulin, like whenever sugar needs to clear, right, from the bloodstream, basically.
Right.
And so you basically would have to like constantly check your blood sugar to say, okay, my blood sugar is high or whatever. Let me get some insulin or be almost ahead of that. And then they come out with technology called CGM, continuous glucose monitoring, which basically we talked about on the previous show with this level startup. Put it in, and it's like it takes readings automatically every 15 minutes. That's different than the pump that where you still have to program, but it'll pump insulin in. And a closed loop system is when they can interact with each other, where it can read what the blood sugar is, and it can actually deploy the insulin without you doing anything. Kind of, right?
Yes. Right. So that only works with the kind of the background level of insulin. You always need to have a low level of functional insulin in your body at all times
Mm-hmm.
to get the sugar from your blood into your cells for your cells to function. Um, you will always, without insulin, your blood sugar will always increase as just, uh, your enzymes in your body will break down
Right.
anything into sugar. So you always need a basal level of insulin. And so the closed loop system affects that specifically. Only affects that background level to maintain a steady level of blood sugar throughout the day. If you eat something, you have to then calculate how much to take to compensate for that. The closed loop system is not suitable to take care of that at the moment. Just the timing doesn't work out because from the time of infusion till the circulation throughout the body where the insulin is actually having an effect isn't fast enough to effectively bring down your blood sugar from eating something.
So before you eat a meal, you basically have to think about what you're eating and give yourself a boost.
Right. Yeah. I need to have an idea of the amount of carbs in every meal and then just divide that by the ratio of amount of insulin to carbs that
you need,
that I know that I've worked out with my doctor,
right.
And give myself that amount of insulin, about half an hour, 45 minutes before I eat.
And what happens if you don't?
Then my blood sugar will go up a lot. It's
Yeah.
a very uncomfortable feeling. If it gets really, really high, it will kill me, but I haven't been close to that.
So basically sometimes you go in and okay, I'm about to eat and I didn't put my insulin in, so I'll put my insulin in right now.
Yeah, and that's happened where
and then more or less that's fine. You get through it.
It'll spike up and then come back down pretty quick. It'll never get too high, but
what's too high? What's the number for too high?
If it's above, I'd say dangerously high is I'd say above 400. Wow. I think that's nanograms per deciliter or milligrams per deciliter of blood. I don't know. Some yes.
That's fine.
Yeah, usually a non-diabetic is around 80 or so. So if it's 5 times higher than that, you're in.
Do you think measuring insulin is a good for people that are not diabetic? Do you think it's a good metric for health, metabolic health?
Measuring insulin?
Yeah. So that's what this startup is doing. They have a CGM that's pumping out data whenever they make you log food or whatever, and they kind of try to say basically, I think that what Dr. Casey was saying is that the best metabolic health is when your blood sugar does not spike. Well, they're measuring blood sugar, sorry, not insulin, of course, continuous glucose monitoring. It's glucose. They're looking at glucose, right? So they're just looking at blood sugar levels, and they want that to be consistent. Do you think it's best for human health to have no spikes in the blood sugar?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
No matter, and so having that be a target of your diet and exercise, do you think that's a good metric for health? Maybe not.
No.
Okay, but good for metabolic health.
Maybe blood sugar can be affected by a number of other things as well. Things like
exercise, stress, right? All those things.
Your cellular needs at the time. What what you've eaten, your hormonal response to high and low blood sugars, they can all have different.
It's a lot of complexity, huh?
Metabolic health, I would say the best metric to use. I don't know. I'm not a.
Yeah, but I mean, what were you thinking on the topic? What are some possibilities?
One thing you could look. One thing I'd be interested in is the makeup of your gut biome.
Yeah. But we don't even know what that means, though, right? We don't.
We don't. If we knew more about the, what proportions of which bacteria.
I'm just trying to eat more kimchi, more yogurt, more kefir. I feel like that's the best I can do.
And it's really the best you can do, but who knows if it's working? somewhere out there, there's the ideal poop, and we should all discuss that.
Can you give me a would you rather?
All right. Hmm. Uh, would you rather, uh, before you take every poop, you have to get a fecal transplant,
Okay.
or once a month you pass a kidney stone,
Oh my God.
but it comes
What's
out
the
pretty
fecal
quick.
like? What's the fecal transplant? In not too graphic detail, what does that entail?
So they're taking somebody else's poop.
Yeah, but I'm
Uh,
gonna do that myself. So like before I go poop myself, I'm gonna have to like take a box out of someone else's poop. I put
some
something in it.
well, so you're gonna have a doctor doing this.
Oh, doctor's gonna show up every time I need to take a
Yeah. So
poop.
if you have to poop, you gotta text the doctor, and he's gonna come by.
But dude, I like pooping like sometimes multiple times a day.
Yeah. So doctor doesn't mind. You know, he's happy to do this. He's in on this whole
But
hypothetical.
it costs money, or I have a subscription plan,
Yeah,
unlimited.
yeah, it's free. It's covered by your insurance.
Okay.
So he's gonna come by, and he's a pretty big guy too, nice and hairy fellow. Um, he's
Wow,
got
that's relevant.
a fairly big,
Albanian doctor, maybe an Albanian doctor.
yeah,
Yeah, that's good.
and he's gonna say some anti-Semitic things while he's doing it, but
That's good.
he's still got a gentle hand.
Oh, that's nice.
So he sticks this thing, which is about as thick as two thumbs, um, up your butt, squeezes in somebody else's poop, and then you can just poop normally. Or you
And what if
pass.
I need to poop like immediately after I wipe? I need to go again. That's another injection, or can I? Do I have like a grace period of like a 15 minutes, half hour?
Yeah, I'll give you a half-hour grace period.
Thank God. All right, that's workable, I think. Versus passing a kidney stone, and that's like when you pee it out, or just hurts
Pee it
inside.
out. You pee it out.
Is
It
it
hurts a whole
painful?
lot. Yeah. Oh my God. I passed one a few years ago,
Oh my God.
so it was slow coming out. So for like 2 weeks, it would hurt when I peed. Um, I just thought I had like a urinary tract infection. I was also eating a lot of beets at the time, so I'd pee, it would hurt a lot, and it would come out red. So
Yeah.
I started to panic. So I called the urologist, and I set up an appointment. And before the appointment happened, I passed it, which was pretty brutal. I had to sit down on the toilet, kind of brace myself against the wall. Um,
And you knew it was happening?
no, I just thought it was hurting a whole lot more than usual.
Yeah, you just try to pee.
And then the next piss was okay. And
Wow.
that was the best piss of my life. So
Fuck.
for the purpose of this hypothetical, you're not going to have to deal with the painful pees for more than 12 hours. Just one day of the month, within 12 hours, you go through this, and it comes out.
Oh my God, these are both so not pleasant. I guess I gotta go with the P. It's just more convenient instead of having a doctor in here every time, every day, and like also doing the insertion piece every day.
Every day. What kind of champ are you, huh?
You don't poop every day?
I had a streak last week where it was like 3 days in a row. That was pretty exciting.
I have okay. It's all about chia seeds. I'm a. I just eat my chia seeds every day, and I'm good to go.
And last week for me, it was beans and cabbage, and that really got everything moving.
Are you
Uh,
vegetarian?
no,
No.
but I don't eat a lot of meat.
Do you
Um,
make your own food?
yep.
So what kind of beans and cabbage did you make?
Um, so this was actually two different meals. The, the beans, I made some black bean burgers. Really good, super
Mm,
easy.
mm,
Um, the cabbage was part of a taco dish that I made with chicken.
mm,
Roasted up some chicken, shredded the cabbage, made it into a coleslaw,
mm-hmm.
and just ate the chicken and the coleslaw on a tortilla. It's not really a taco as
It,
much as
it, it's
a
got
wrap.
taco flavors.
Taco construction with picnic flavors, I guess.
Roasted chicken? How'd you roast it?
I just, chicken breasts. I just threw some spices on it and stuck in the oven.
Ugh, this is like sounds kind of healthy, I guess. Were you going
Uh,
for healthy?
we're going for easy and cheap.
Yeah, have you been trying to like save money on food?
I try to spend as little as possible on food. Not as little as possible, but I don't like to splurge anymore.
Are you trying to like, what's your investment philosophy? Are you trying to save money and invest?
No, I'm just trying to right size my spending so that I
What do you think is the right size? Like, how much should you be spending of your monthly cash that you get,
so
percentage wise? So you don't have to give us numbers.
yeah, let's
Like
see.
50% should be saving 50%, should be saving 10%, 5%. Oh,
Um, saving, I would say, mm, 10 to 20%.
10 to 20. I think that's a good, it's pretty solid savings, right? Especially if you hit the 20.
Yeah, I'm not really keeping track though. I'm just trying to
You don't have a
spend.
retirement plan in your head?
I have a Roth IRA which I contribute to every month.
Okay, that's your retirement plan. Do you max it out?
I don't make enough to max it out.
You scientists don't get paid enough.
We do
I mean,
not get
especially if you're working academic research. But when you work academic research, you have like a lot of freedom, so that's nice.
you do, but you still are entirely reliant on grant funding, and when that runs out, you're out of a job.
Would you ever do like work for a corporation?
Absolutely.
I think corporations would love to have you.
Any corporations that are looking to hire a motivated, hardworking, super compelling person, just contact the Pavelcast and
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like, so what can you do for people?
what do you need done? I could do all sorts of stuff. My expertise is in behavioral neuroscience, but um, I try to abide by the scientific method and scientific rigor in all my activities.
Yeah.
So if you think that this perspective is good for your corporation, I could
You can
I
talk
could
to
be
them.
that guy.
No, I mean obviously, yeah, yeah. But I wonder if you're like if you use a certain technology in the lab, like like let's say genetic sequencing, that you could go work for people that do that same stuff. Or if you do like mouse research, you could become like a mouse research guy at Pfizer or some
Oh,
other
I could
biotech.
I could certainly be a mouse research guy at Pfizer. I've been contracted by or subcontracted, I guess, by these companies, some
Hmm.
of these pharmaceutical companies, to investigate some preclinical drugs. But it's challenging for psychiatric research because we know so little about the mechanisms of these diseases that there's just isn't much of a profit motive for the companies to go to all the work
Right.
to develop something that they really have no idea if it's going to work in humans.
So you should go work for Neuralink, Elon Musk's startup, because you know neuroscience. I mean, you have a PhD in neuroscience, so you can basically do all sorts of neuroscience cool things, right?
I'll look it up, yeah.
Yeah, fuck yeah, that would be sweet. You get rich too. This show has two recurring segments. Segment number one is called Hot Tips. It's time for Hot Tips. It's time for Hot Tips. hot tips. And which is a hot tips is basically where you can give any tip you want to the audience. It can be a meal, it can be a book, it can be a song, it can be a movie, it can be a travel tip, it can be a clothing tip, it can be do interior design tip. I mean, coffee. It could be anything, something that you think could add to people's lives. It's a hot tip.
All right. Well, as we mentioned earlier, I like to see a lot of live music.
Yeah.
I've gotten to see some excellent bands who aren't huge yet, but are really, really worth looking out for. So I encourage all of your listeners to check out Broken Baby.
Broken
Uh,
Baby.
yes, they're a super fun band. Live shows are incredible, as well as Summer Cannibals,
So,
another great band who I've been digging just a ton these days.
that's awesome. What kind of music are they?
So Summer Cannibals, I'd say, is more of a kind of in the punk grunge kind of vein, while Broken Baby is a little harder to define. Maybe more of I I wouldn't even begin to know how to describe them. Um, you think they are not something until they are. You know, um, they're
Cool.
yeah, they're definitely worth checking out. And seriously,
Nice.
do
Broken
it.
Baby and Summer Cannibals. Heard it here first, folks. I'm sure they're on Spotify and Apple Music and all that good stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
That. Can you give me one more? Would you rather?
All right, let's do one that's more
Like,
two positives, huh?
yeah, come on, fuck those. That's I can still feel the gallbladder stone, the kidney stone, rather.
Would you rather be able to look at a menu and know exactly what you would enjoy the most,
Mm.
or be able to cook food in the palm of your hand?
How does that mean in the palm of my hand?
Just you put like raw beef in the palm of your hand,
And
and
it
then you cook it.
sizzles, and I can like control like how it cooks. I can get it like it's like a hot surface, magical
Yeah,
hot
yeah.
surface.
It's like a hot plate.
Okay, so I can't like. I guess I could. Would I be able to braise it up in my hand?
I mean, if you have a pot, you
Yeah,
could put the pot on it, put some liquid in there, and braise it in that. Yeah, sure.
I would just be okay. I mean, certainly very convenient versus
Versus,
knowing what. Oh man, uh, I don't go camping that often, but I really enjoy choosing the right thing at the restaurant. And the right thing at the restaurant is a completely subjective choice, not only for you, but also I think in the moment in time. And what I think you're proposing with this first one is I'd be able to tell in the moment in time, in that, what would I enjoy the most for lunch right now?
exactly. You could go to the same restaurant twice, and you might get a different option both times. You know.
And I could rank them and like, it would be all just like give me like magical scores, I guess, somehow. I'll take
And
that one. That one's good.
you just look at the menu and you know.
You just know.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, that's the thing I'm getting this time, and you know it's gonna be, you would not enjoy anything more.
And when you eat it, like I mean, you can do a test. You can order everything on the menu and see that your superpower is indeed correct. That's the one, man. That's the ticket. I love that. I hate when I get the wrong thing on the menu. I'm like, oh, and someone else gets something better, and like, fuck. I'm like, damn.
Yeah. Um,
How about you?
I'm gonna cook food in my hand.
Yeah.
I think that would be especially useful if you have like a cup of coffee that's cooling down. You just kind of
Yeah.
set it on your palm, and all of a sudden it's hot again.
That'd be
Um,
nice.
yeah, maybe you were cooking up some chicken and you undercooked it, and instead of throwing it back in the pan, you just kind of cook it up real quick. You have a cheese sandwich. All of a sudden, it's a grilled cheese sandwich. You
Oh,
know?
that's a great point. That's a good point. Like you could toast sandwiches so easily.
Yeah.
Oh, you want one more?
All right. Would you rather every time you have sex, it's recorded, streamed live, people are all over the world are watching and commenting, including, your personal and professional contacts,
Of course. The show is so
or
good they can't look away.
or you for 6 months out of the year you have to live in that retirement community in Florida where all the old people are, where they're all swingers, and you have to make, video recordings of all the old people having sex
Do
all
I
day.
not participate?
You cannot participate, even if they ask you, which they will.
Oh, interesting.
You just have to, get the good shots, and they want some like gross shots too. So this is like 16 hours a day, 6 days a week for 6 months out of the year.
Mm. I mean, do I assume in the first one that my personal life and professional life gets affected by this negatively, or not necessarily?
And they might be proud of you. They might be cheering you on. You got to read the comments, you know.
Oh,
Oh,
is it like people get to tip too? Like, could I make this a living?
you don't get paid for it, but you can. Like, they'll give you like, the Reddit awards. You get those.
For 6 months out of my life, I'm going to Florida, and like I just have a life in Florida where my job consists of 12 hours a day of filming old senior citizen
Yeah, having old.
retirement community swinger sex.
Yeah, but
But how
this.
much? I mean, they're not even going for 12 hours a day. Come on, or maybe they
I
are.
mean, I'm sure some wake up early, some wake up late. You know.
And there's like there's hundreds of them. They're all just participating.
Yeah,
I don't want that.
yeah, but you're paid well during that time, so you don't have to work the other 6 months out of the year.
Oh, that's I see. And I can do whatever I want on my free time. When I have sex, it does not get broadcast on the
It
internet.
will not get broadcast.
In
But
the
I mean,
first scenario,
you'll be thinking about it a lot. It's hard to get those visuals out of your mind.
I choose the first one. Because I there's a little bit of a voyeur in me anyway, so that sounds like it could be an interesting proposition.
So you're broadcasting yourself?
I'm broadcasting.
Yeah, me too. I think I have little enough sex that it's not really gonna affect me one way or the other. So I don't
You
want to.
say that now, but you never know.
Of course, the day I make that choice,
It's just like boom. The other segment we have on the show is called. It's sponsored by Elon Musk, and I get to use his teleportation transformation device. That's like right here. This it looks like a coffee thing, but it's actually a super special device. And using the device, we're able to teleport somewhere momentarily and to kind of like enjoy this place and take it in for a moment. Um, so yeah, if you can maybe let's choose a place where you want to go, and I'll program it in, and we'll go there for a few moments, so we can talk about it.
Oh, what's a lovely place? A place that I love is Chance Creek in near Oberlin, Ohio.
Let me program that in. Wow, look at this. Gorgeous here. And
Really is beautiful, isn't it? Um, let's get in the water. It's the thing is, don't get naked before you jump in the water. The neighbors on the other side will call the police.
Well, is the water? I'm afraid. Is it cold?
It's cold, but I mean it's shallow and it's fresh.
Oh, I love freshwater swimming. Like how cold?
Well, we're in northern Ohio in the middle of the woods. It is August, so um, it, I mean it's refreshing. Um, you'll get a chill, but you'll be happy you went in. You won't even need a towel when you get out. Just kind of lie on the bank in
Hmm.
the sun.
What's a creek?
A creek is like a tiny river.
So it has water flowing through it consistently,
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's like a brook
a bubbling brook.
or a creek. You don't have creeks out there.
We don't have water over here, but we have creeks in Baltimore.
Yeah.
Um, what's the surrounding look like? Is it tall trees? Is it green?
Yeah. So so this creek looks like it was carved out of the ground. Where uh,
What's it called?
Chance Creek.
Cool.
Yep. Yeah, we used to go out there with our classmates and just kind of uh, chill out by the water. There was a nice ice cream place not too far from there called Miller's Ice Cream. It's no longer open, but they would have this delicious fresh strawberry sundae. It was
Mm.
some
Fresh strawberries.
yes, shortbread cake, fresh vanilla ice cream, and fresh strawberries. Just you know, fantastic, clean ice cream. None of the chunks in there. No candy. Just cake and ice cream and strawberries. Healthy.
Cake? What kind of
Like pound
cake?
cake or something. Or
Oh, pound cake, vanilla pound cake. That sounds delicious.
it really was.
Like, how do you work with sugar because you're like a type 1 diabetic? Like, do you eat as much sugar as you want?
I have to take more insulin to eat sugar. Um,
Is that
I
bad?
generally avoid it. Like I'll buy diet sodas.
That doesn't bump your blood sugar the same way that real sugar does?
A diet soda has no effect on my blood sugar.
Really?
I can drink as much of that as I want.
What about like beer and wine?
Though alcohol has an interesting effect. So, like with beer and wine, those also have a lot of sugar in them as well, a lot of carbs.
Hmm.
So it'll cause a acute increase in blood sugar, but then the alcohol will cause a decrease
Mm.
several hours later. So it's happened where I've drank way too much at night and then had a terrible reaction to that, overnight, early the next morning, wake up with very low blood sugar,
Mm.
in a state of confusion or whatever.
That's
And
scary.
yeah, it's not a good place to be. So you got to be careful when you drink, but I've also made a number of poor choices in my life. So
You're still here. That's
yeah,
the important part. What happens with like whiskey or any kind of high, just what do you
yeah,
call
that
it?
has less of
Here.
an effect. And actually, I find whiskey seems to have very good effect on my blood sugar. It has kind of a stabilizing effect,
That's interesting.
which is that's just personal. I don't think any doctor would agree with me and advise me to do this. But I find whiskey, especially Canadian whiskey, like Canadian Club or Rich and Rare, those are just fantastic for you type 1 diabetics out there.
You can just drink a lot of it and like it doesn't really give you that big bounce back and forth.
Yeah, yeah. It keeps it pretty stable.
What's your way to drink whiskey?
And it's really delicious. I really like Canadian Club, and Rich and Rare is a good second option.
What's like the top end Canadian whiskey that I should try?
I don't think there is a top end.
There's
All
gotta be. There's always top end.
yeah, it's all pretty cheap. Um, like if you like real smoky oak hinted, um, barrel aged whiskeys, you're not gonna love Canadian whiskey. It's more smooth.
Hmm.
It has a flavor whiskey, but just goes down fast.
We're back in our respective places now.
All right.
Um, that's interesting. The vodka, same thing. All these spirits, yeah, blood sugar. We're such complex organisms,
Yeah. I imagine rum is slightly different because it's made from sugar.
right? Or cachaça. That's also kind of like a. Do you? Yeah. Do you know why it happens? Like, what happened that you're not able to produce insulin?
Um, so my dad did I went on ancestry.com recently to look at his family tree.
Yeah.
His mother had several siblings who died young in the early part of the 20th century. So we imagine that they all had type 1 diabetes, and um, I lucked out on getting those combinations of genes that made it express.
Is
So
it prevalent in like the Ashkenazi Jewish population
I don't
specifically?
think it's any more prevalent in that population than anyone else.
Okay, that's good. I see.
And
So basically, it's genetics, and somehow the genetics managed to survive all this time.
yeah, probably some combination of many genes and environmental effects, but certainly my genetics put me at a very, very high risk state. And
Gotcha.
right prior to when I was diagnosed, actually, so my mom was active in the local Jewish community, helping immigrants from the Soviet Union settle in. Um,
This guy, she's
yeah,
part of the Hebrew Aid Immigration Society or whatever. Hebrew
yeah,
Immigration
yeah, yeah.
Society.
So we were helping this one Russian family move in,
Nice.
and they just kept feeding me like cake and candy.
Oh, they fucked you.
I asked for a glass of water, and they gave me some 7 Up. It was just more sugar than I'd ever really been used to, and I got diagnosed shortly thereafter. So I blame them
Yeah,
first.
you got this. They gave you the big spike to push you over the edge there, huh?
Yeah,
And
maybe that was
basically,
the
on the
environment as
molecular
well.
level, it just shuts down, huh? Okay, one. Let's do one more. Would you rather? Or what's okay? Would you rather have a magical sweeper that just like a little sweeper that always sweeps and always keeps your house like tidy from sweeping? Like, so you can't wash the floors, can't vacuum. All it can do is sweep. It's like a magical broom from Harry Potter, but it's always sweeping and keeping things tidy for you. You drop something. For a wet spill, it kind of like approaches it as it doesn't really know what to do. It needs your help. But for any dry spilling, it's good to go. Or you snap your fingers whenever you want, and you have a perfectly groomed body in terms of hair, whatever it is that you want. So if you want some people like their back shaved or their front shaved or whatever, like you don't have to worry about it. Snap, perfectly groomed.
Yeah, I'm definitely going with that snap. Goodness. Um, I gotta run the razor, the
Yeah,
buzzer over my head every day.
yeah,
That takes a couple minutes. Got to shave,
yeah.
and shave my back too. I got one of those long back shaving things. You ever seen those?
No, that sounds interesting. Like, is it like a trimmer or?
So it's like a razor with
Wow.
like a super long handle. To shave your back with. I have to do that every. I should do it like every other week.
Why?
But
Why don't you just get hairy?
it's too hairy.
You don't like it?
Yeah, I don't like the back hair.
It makes you like I've never shaved my back. 'Cause it's always been hairy. I'm just used to it. You're not used to it?
I am used to it, but I think it looks better without it. It's not necessarily better. Just like,
You like it. You like it.
yeah,
You like the feeling. I mean, I also like a beard. You don't like a beard.
right, yeah. I
Can
had
you
a
grow a
beard.
big like beard, like a yeshiva beard?
the longest beard I ever had was early this year. Actually, it was pretty long, but I hated it. Just
Mm.
kept getting food in it, and I always felt like my face was wet. Like it's tough to dry your face with a beard.
Mm.
You really gotta. You can't just throw the towel at it. You have to kind of rub it down. You know.
What's your would you rather to me?
All right.
Oh, which one would I do? I don't need to sweep that much, and I would rather take the perfect groom. Like just because some areas, like I just don't. It's boop.
Yeah.
It's so much fun. Boop. What's your would you rather for me?
Would you rather
Oh
miss
yes.
every light, every traffic light that you encounter?
Miss meaning like it turns red as you approach it.
It turns red or is red.
Yeah.
Um, or every person that you are in a line with or close contact with at a store or restaurant or anything is rude to you. Just
Mm.
mildly rude. Like you're pushing your cart up in the grocery store and you get like a foot away from the person in front of you and they turn and they're like, excuse you, every time.
What would the cashier do?
I mean, she's gonna he or she. That was
Whoa! Should we edit that out?
the cashier will ring you up, will act professional, but will um, make exaggerated eye rolls in judgment of what you're buying.
I see. It's like low grade annoyance constantly in your life, being like you be constant, and also traffic lights.
Yeah,
Um, I would have to choose the traffic lights because I know a lot of back roads. I can just use stop signs a lot, and I can try to like highway. I mean, I don't drive that much. I interact with people more than I drive through lights, and also I feel like at a light when you stop there, it's annoying, but it's okay. I'm not gonna get super angry. If I get like constant like human rudeness thrown towards me, that will be really a big test for my mindfulness action, which I'm
yeah.
not ready
I'm
for.
I'm going the other way. I don't drive a car, but I ride a bike.
Yeah,
Um, and it's just a pain in the ass to have to stop all the time.
it's
And
true.
I'd be more likely to run more lights and put myself in great risk. Whereas I go out, I'll just put in some headphones,
You just ignore
put
it.
put in some sunglasses. Yeah, just if you're gonna be a dick to
Interesting.
me, I'm just gonna ignore you in return.
That's a great attitude. How long have you been biking?
Um, Probably about five years now.
Oh, okay. You're new to the game. Perfect. Any questions for me?
Um, Not really. How's I don't know. I was gonna say how's your podcast? It's your podcast, obviously excellent. So
It's a really quality content podcast. We just need it to grow more, and I need to do a better job branding and marketing. But I think the conversations that happen here deliver some really good laughs and learning, and that's all I'm really about. Thanks for coming on.
yeah, it's been a pleasure to have you. Yeah, happy to come back anytime.
That's what I'm talking about. Maybe you can do a recurring Would You Rather. That'd be actually a lot.